Okay, regulation of blood glucose. Now, what is the importance of blood glucose regulation? See, there are some tissues which continuously require glucose as the metabolic fuel. Those tissues are brain, RBC, kidney medulla, lens, cornea of eye, testis, and exercising muscle. For these tissues, continual supply of glucose is essential as a source of energy. That's why it's very important to regulate the blood glucose level. Now, what are the concentration of blood glucose? These are the concentration of blood glucose in varying conditions. For example, after an ingestion of carbohydrate meal, the concentration of blood glucose is 117 to 129.6 milligram per deciliter. In the post-absorptive state, the concentration is 81 to 99 milligram per deciliter. And in starvation, the concentration is 59.4 to 70.2 milligram per deciliter. These are the concentration of glucose in different conditions. These values have been taken by the book from Harper's Illustrated Biochemistry. So now come to hyperglycemic factors. Hyperglycemic factors means the factors which add glucose to the blood. Those factors are diet, glycogenolysis, and gluconeogenesis. So these three are the hyperglycemic factors, that is, they increase the level of blood glucose. Number one is diet. Now diet, mainly carbohydrates. We take carbohydrates in form of polysaccharides, disaccharides, and monosaccharides. After ingestion, these carbohydrates, they are hydrolyzed, they are digested and absorbed in their simplest form. So the simplest form of carbohydrates is monosaccharides. So these carbohydrates, they are absorbed in the form of glucose, fructose, and galactose. From then, once they are digested, they are absorbed in form of glucose, fructose, and galactose. From small intestine, they are transported to liver by hepatic portal vein. And after entering liver, this fructose and galactose is also converted back to glucose. Thus, glucose is added to the blood. Carbohydrates ingested in form of polysaccharides, disaccharides, and monosaccharides, they are hydrolyzed and absorbed in their simplest form, that is in form of monosaccharides, glucose, fructose, and galactose. Then after absorption, they are carried to the liver by hepatic portal vein. And in liver, this fructose and galactose also gets converted to glucose. Thus, glucose is added to the blood. It increases the concentration of glucose in blood. Now, second thing is glycogenolysis. That is, glycogen converts to glucose. But here when we are using the term glycogenolysis, appropriately it should be used as liver glycogenolysis, because as we know that end product of liver glycogenolysis is free glucose. See, usually muscle glycogenolysis does not add sugar or does not add glucose to the blood, because the end product of muscle glycogenolysis is glucose 6-phosphate and not glucose. Because once glucose 6-phosphate is formed, then in presence of glucose 6-phosphatase, glucose is formed. But since muscle, it lacks this enzyme glucose 6-phosphatase, thus the process of glycogenolysis ends till glucose 6-phosphate. So the end product of muscle glycogenolysis is glucose 6-phosphate, and thus it does not contribute to the blood glucose level. But indirectly, muscle glycogenolysis does contribute to blood glucose level. How? By glucose-alanine cycle. Now, what is glucose-alanine cycle? This I have explained in gluconeogenesis also. In muscle, by glycogenolysis, glycogen gets converted to glucose 6-phosphate. This is the end product of muscle glycogenolysis. This glucose 6-phosphate enters the glycolytic pathway and forms pyruvate. Pyruvate, after transamination, forms amino acid alanine. This alanine is formed in muscle. Now, this alanine comes in blood circulation. From blood, it is taken up by liver. In liver, alanine again transaminates, and after transamination, alanine gets converted to pyruvate. Pyruvate, by gluconeogenesis, forms glucose. First, glucose 6-phosphate is formed, and then ultimately glucose is formed. So pyruvate forms glucose in presence of gluconeogenesis. Now, this glucose formed in liver by gluconeogenesis, from pyruvate, it enters the blood circulation. So thus, the glycogen which has broken down in broken down in muscle, ultimately it adds glucose to the blood. So directly, in muscle glycogenolysis, glucose is not formed. That is, glucose directly is not added in blood by muscle glycogenolysis, but indirectly muscle glycogenolysis does contribute to blood glucose level. How? By glucose alanine cycle. This alanine is formed in muscle. How it is formed? In muscle by glycogenolysis. Glycogen forms glucose 6-phosphate. Glucose 6-phosphate and pyruvate by forms pyruvate. This pyruvate by transamination forms alanine. Alanine is taken up by liver. In liver, alanine gets converted back to pyruvate. Pyruvate forms glucose by gluconeogenesis. This glucose enters the blood circulation. So this is how muscle glycogenolysis indirectly contributes blood glucose, contributes to the maintain the blood glucose level by glucose alanine cycle. So the second hyperglycemic factor was glycogenolysis, and the third one is gluconeogenesis. Gluconeogenesis, as we all know, it is the de novo synthesis of glucose from non-carbohydrate precursors or substrates. Now, these non-carbohydrate precursors, they are divided into two categories. The first category includes a substrate which are directly converted to glucose, like amino acids and propionate. And the second category includes those substrates which are product of metabolism of glucose in other tissues, and then they are taken up by liver or kidney to be converted back to glucose. Example is lactate and glycerol. Lactate, which is formed by anaerobic glycolysis in skeletal muscle. So skeletal muscle and RBCs, end product of glycolysis is lactate in anaerobic condition. In skeletal muscle, the end product is lactate. And in RBCs, lactate is formed again by glycolysis. So this lactate, which is formed in skeletal muscle, it comes in the blood circulation, taken up by liver or kidney and converted back to glucose by gluconeogenesis. Glycerol, it is formed from glucose in adipose tissue, and then in fasting condition, this triacyl glycerol, it breaks down to glycerol and fatty acids. This glycerol is taken up by, enters the circulation, blood circulation, and then it is taken up by liver or kidney to be converted back to glucose. So these are the two substrates which are converted. They are product of metabolism of glucose in other tissues and then taken up by liver or kidney to be converted back to glucose. So these were the three hyperglycemic factors. Number one is diet. Number two is glycogenolysis, and number three is gluconeogenesis. Now, hypoglycemic factors. Hypoglycemic factors, matlab, they reduce the blood glucose concentration. These factors, they reduce the blood glucose concentration. So how? What are those factors? Number one is oxidation by glycolysis, because the major metabolic pathway of glucose is glycolysis. So in glycolysis, glucose is converted to pyruvate. So number one, glycolysis. Number two is glycogenesis, that is conversion of glucose to glycogen, glycogenesis. And number three is lipogenesis, that is conversion of glucose to lipids. Glucose gets converted to pyruvate by glycolysis. Pyruvate by oxidative decarboxylation forms acetyl coenzyme A. Acetyl coenzyme A is the building block for fatty acids. So acetyl coenzyme A give rise to fatty acids, synthesize fatty acids, and these fatty acids then they combine with glycerol to form triacylglycerol or triglyceride. So this is lipid. So this is how glucose gets converted to lipid. So these were the three hypoglycemic factors. Number one, oxidation by glycolysis, because glycolysis is a major metabolic route of glucose metabolism. Number two is glycogenesis, and number three is lipogenesis. Glucose converts into pyruvate by glycolysis. Pyruvate forms acetyl coenzyme A by oxidative decarboxylation, and then acetyl coenzyme A forms fatty acids. These fatty acids combine with glycerol to form triacylglycerol or fat. So this is lipogenesis. So by these three factors, the glucose is decreased from blood. So now there should be a balance between these hypoglycemic factors and hyperglycemic factors to maintain the blood glucose concentration in the desired range. There should be balance in these hyperglycemic factors and hypoglycemic factors. So these three were the hyperglycemic factors: diet, glycogenolysis, gluconeogenesis. Glycogenolysis mainly takes place in early fasting. Gluconeogenesis mainly takes place in during prolonged fasting. So these three hyperglycemic factors, oxidation, number two is glycogenesis, and number three is lipogenesis. So there should be a balance between these two factors to maintain the optimum blood glucose concentration. Now, regulatory factors. There are many metabolic and hormonal factors which regulate the blood glucose concentration. We'll address them one by one. First is liver, second is extrahepatic tissues, and number 3 is hormones. So we'll see first how the liver maintains the blood glucose concentration. See, liver cells and pancreatic islet cells, they are freely permeable to glucose in either direction by glucose 2 transporter. Liver cells, they are freely permeable to glucose by glucose 2 transporter. Glucokinase, which is the first enzyme in the pathway of glycolysis in liver and pancreatic islet cells. So this glucokinase, its activity increases when there is increased concentration of glucose in hepatic portal vein. And hepatic portal vein में concentration कब ज़्यादा होगा? That will be after a carbohydrate meal. So after a carbohydrate meal, there will be increased concentration of glucose in hepatic portal vein, which will increase the activity of glucokinase, and this glucokinase will further promote the uptake of increased uptake of large amount of glucose in hepatic cells, and it will also increase the oxidation by glycolysis. I'm repeating this. See, after a carbohydrate meal, there will be increased concentration of glucose in hepatic portal vein. This increased concentration of glucose in hepatic portal vein will increase the activity of glucokinase because this glucokinase has very low affinity for glucose. So its activity will only increase when there is increased concentration of glucose. So then after a carbohydrate meal, when there is increased concentration of glucose in hepatic portal vein, this will lead to increased activity of glucokinase, the first enzyme of glycolytic pathway in liver as well as pancreatic islet cells. So this increased activity of glucokinase will further promote increased uptake of large amount of glucose in liver cells, and also it will lead to increased glycolysis. Thus, following the carbohydrate meal, there will be increased uptake of glucose in liver cells and followed by increased glycolysis. So this is how liver maintains the blood glucose concentration. Second comes, before we proceed to the extrahepatic tissues, this is the main point, that is at normal peripheral blood glucose concentration, that is in the post-absorptive, this is the post-absorptive concentration, 4.5 to 5.5 millimole per liter or 81 to 99 milligram per deciliter. So this is the post-absorptive concentration of blood glucose. At this concentration, liver is a net producer of glucose. It only produces glucose when the glucose concentration increases this level. If it increases above this level, then only the output of glucose is ceased and there's only a net uptake. That is, liver will only take glucose when there is increased blood glucose concentration. At normal blood glucose concentration, liver is a net producer of glucose. So at normal peripheral blood glucose concentration, which is 81 to 99 milligram per deciliter, liver is a net producer of glucose. Only when the liver glucose concentration increases, then output of glucose is ceased and there is a net uptake. Second comes extrahepatic tissues. See, cells of extrahepatic tissues except pancreatic islet cells. As I told you, only pancreatic islet cells in extrahepatic tissues are the cells which are freely permeable to glucose. So except these pancreatic islet cells, all the cells of extrahepatic tissues, they are relatively impermeable to glucose. So their entry is regulated by transporter which is called as glucose transporter 4. For example, in adipose tissue and muscle, the glucose transporter, which is glucose transporter 4 of adipose tissue and muscle, this transporter is under the control of insulin. It is regulated by insulin, and insulin is secreted when there is increased blood glucose concentration. So when there is increased blood glucose concentration, insulin is secreted, and insulin, what it does, it will recruit the glucose transporter 4 from interior of the cell to plasma membrane, thus enhancing the uptake of glucose in adipose tissue and muscle. As I told you, the cells of extrahepatic tissues, they are relatively impermeable to glucose. So these extrahepatic tissues, their entry of glucose, in them the entry of glucose is regulated by the glucose transporter. For example, glucose transporter 4 of adipose tissue and muscle, it is under the control of insulin. Insulin, it is secreted in response to increased blood glucose. Once the insulin is secreted, it recruits transporter, glucose transporter 4 from interior of the cell to plasma membrane. Once this transporter is recruited to the plasma membrane, it further increases the uptake of glucose in adipose tissue and muscle. Thus, we can say that uptake of glucose in these extrahepatic tissue is the rate limiting step in utilization of glucose. Thus, uptake of glucose is the rate limiting step in the utilization of glucose in extrahepatic tissues. So this is how extrahepatic tissues, they control the blood glucose concentration. That is, they will only uptake glucose when the blood glucose concentration is high by the help of insulin. Insulin, it promotes, regulates this glucose transporter 4 of adipose tissue and muscle. Increase blood glucose concentration, insulin secreted. Insulin will recruit this transporter from interior of the cell to plasma membrane, which will enhance the uptake of glucose in adipose tissue and muscle. Thus, uptake of glucose in these tissues is the rate limiting step for utilization of glucose. Third comes hormones. First, we'll do a role of insulin, how insulin regulates the blood glucose concentration. See, insulin, it plays a central role in regulating blood glucose level. This insulin is secreted from beta cells of islet of Langerhans in pancreas in response to hyperglycemia. That is when there will be high blood glucose concentration. In response to high blood glucose concentration, insulin is secreted from beta cells of islet of Langerhans. Beta cells, they are freely permeable to glucose transporter 2. Once the beta cells are freely permeable to glucose, this glucose will be taken up by these beta cells, which will lead to glucose will be phosphorylated by glucokinase and forms glucose 6-phosphate. This glucose 6-phosphate further enters the glycolytic pathway, that is increased glycolysis, which will lead to increased TCA cycle, thus increased production of ATP. Now this increased production of ATP will inhibit ATP sensitive K+ channels, and which will cause depolarization of cell membrane. Once the cell membrane is depolarized, it will result into calcium influx via voltage sensitive calcium channels and exocytosis of insulin. So this is the mechanism by which insulin is synthesized, is secreted. I'm repeating this again. Glucose, since beta cells of pancreas are freely permeable to glucose, so this glucose enters the beta cells by glucose transporter 2. After entering glucose, it will enter the glycolytic pathway. This glucose is phosphorylated by glucokinase, whose activity is increased in presence of increased glucose. So this glucose enters the glycolytic pathway. There will be increased glycolysis, which will lead to increased TCA cycle, thus increased production of ATP. Once ATP is produced in increased amount, it will inhibit ATP sensitive K+ channels, causing depolarization of cell membrane, resulting into calcium influx via voltage sensitive calcium channels and exocytosis of insulin. Thus, insulin is secreted in response to high blood glucose concentration. Now, once insulin is secreted, it will promote all the metabolic pathways which will lead to decreased glucose, which will utilize glucose from blood, and it will inhibit those pathways which add glucose in the blood. For example, see, these are all the pathways which are stimulated by insulin, and all these pathways will decrease the concentration of glucose in blood. For example, in liver, it will stimulate glycolysis by stimulating enzymes glucokinase, phosphofructokinase 1, and pyruvate kinase. So by stimulating these three enzymes, glycolysis is stimulated by insulin. So glycolysis is stimulated, glycogen synthesis is stimulated by that stimulating enzyme glycogen synthase. So insulin, it stimulates enzyme glycogen synthase, thus increasing glycogenesis. Fatty acid synthesis, insulin promotes fatty acid synthesis by stimulating enzyme acyl coenzyme A carboxylase, which converts acyl coenzyme A to mannoline coenzyme A. This acyl coenzyme A is the building block for fatty acids, and acyl coenzyme A is formed ultimately from glucose. Glucose gives rise to pyruvate, and pyruvate forms acyl coenzyme A, and acyl coenzyme A is a substrate for fatty acid synthesis. So fatty acid synthesis, acyl coenzyme A is the building block. So in this building block, acyl coenzyme A, the first step is acyl coenzyme A gets converted to malonyl coenzyme A in presence of acyl coenzyme A carboxylase. So that enzyme is also stimulated by insulin. So insulin promotes fatty acid synthesis, and insulin also promotes protein synthesis. That is around 10 non-essential amino acids, they are ultimately synthesized from glucose. So glucose is converted to amino acids also, thus helpful in protein synthesis. So insulin, it stimulates protein synthesis also. Thus insulin stimulates all these pathways in liver. In muscle, it stimulates glucose uptake, promotes glycolysis, glycogen synthesis, and protein synthesis. And in adipose tissue also stimulates glucose uptake and lipogenesis, that is fatty acid synthesis. So these all are the pathways which are increased by insulin, and all these pathways, they lead to decreased blood glucose concentration. Now, these are the pathways which are inhibited by insulin because all these pathways will increase the blood glucose concentration. For example, glycogenolysis, it inhibits glycogenolysis, gluconeogenesis, ketogenesis, and protein degradation. All these pathways are inhibited by insulin in liver. And these pathways, glycogenolysis and protein degradation, it is inhibited in muscle, and lipolysis, that is breaking down of lipids, it is inhibited in adipose tissue. So these are all the pathways which are inhibited by insulin, and all these pathways will give rise to increased concentration of glucose. And all these pathways, they are stimulated by insulin because they will decrease the blood glucose concentration. Thus, this is how insulin, it will maintain the blood glucose concentration. See, in liver, it doesn't have the direct impact upon glucose uptake. Short-term glucose uptake is not stimulated by insulin. However, we can say that long-term uptake of glucose is stimulated by insulin because it stimulates enzymes of glycolysis, glycogen synthesis, thus enhancing the uptake thus enhancing the uptake, long-term uptake of glucose. Directly, it does not have impact on glucose uptake in liver because these cells are they are freely permeable to glucose. So this is how insulin regulates the blood glucose concentration. See, this is the same the mechanism by which glucose is insulin is secreted. That is, in blood, when the glucose level is increased, it will stimulate the beta cells in pancreas to release insulin. Once insulin is secreted, it will increase the uptake of glucose in adipose tissue and muscle and enhance the pathways of glycolysis and glycogenesis in liver, thus enhancing the long-term uptake of glucose in liver. And by these pathways, ultimately, blood glucose is decline, thus maintaining the blood glucose level in this concentration, that is 90 milligram per deciliter. This is the average blood glucose concentration. So thus maintaining the blood glucose concentration in this range, 90 milligram per 100 ml. So this is how insulin is secreted, and these are the pathways which are stimulated by insulin, and these are the pathways which are suppressed by insulin. So today's session is still here only. We'll quickly have a look of the today's session. So why blood glucose regulation is important? Because there are certain tissues which require glucose as their metabolic fuel. So thus glucose concentration, maintaining of glucose concentration, blood glucose concentration is very essential, and it's a very finely regulated mechanism. These are the concentrations in varying conditions of glucose after a carbohydrate meal, 117 to 129.6 milligram per deciliter. Post-absorptive state, 81 to 99 milligram per deciliter, and starvation, 59.4 to 70.2 milligram per deciliter. Blood glucose concentration is derived from diet, glycogenolysis, and gluconeogenesis. These three are the hyperglycemic factors which add glucose to blood. Carbohydrates ingested in form of polydiene monosaccharides, they are absorbed in their simplest form, that is monosaccharide, glucose, fructose, and galactose. They are taken up from small intestine to liver by hepatic portal vein, and in liver, fructose and galactose also gets converted to glucose. Glycogenolysis, liver glycogenolysis is directly adds glucose to the blood, but muscle glycogenolysis indirectly adds glucose to the blood by glucose-alanine cycle. In muscle, by glycogenolysis, glycogen converts into glucose 6-phosphate, forms pyruvate, pyruvate forms alanine, alanine is taken up by liver, again converted to pyruvate, pyruvate forms glucose, again comes in the blood circulation. Thus, this is how that muscle glycogenolysis adds glucose to the blood indirectly by glucose-alanine cycle. Third one was gluconeogenesis, that is synthesis of new glucose from non-carbohydrate precursors, for example, amino acids, propionate, lactate, and glycerol. Now, hypoglycemic factors which reduce blood glucose concentration, those are oxidation by glycolysis, glycogenesis, and lipogenesis. So there should be a balance between these hyperglycemic factors and hypoglycemic factors in order to maintain the blood glucose concentration in the desired limit. Now, metabolic and hormonal regulatory factors which regulate the blood glucose concentration are liver, extrahepatic tissues, and hormones. Liver, these cells are freely permeable to glucose by glucose transporter 2. Glucokinase, which is the first enzyme, regulatory enzyme of glycolytic pathway in liver and pancreatic islet cells. This glucokinase, since it has low affinity for glucose, so its activity will increase when there is increased concentration of glucose in hepatic portal vein, and this will be after a carbohydrate meal. So once the glucose concentration is more in hepatic portal vein, glucokinase, it will increase the uptake of glucose in liver cells and also increase glycolysis. This is how, when there is increased blood glucose concentration, so liver takes up glucose and the output ceased. But in normal glucose concentration, liver is a net producer of glucose. Extrahepatic tissues, their uptake of glucose is relatively impermeable. Their uptake is controlled by insulin via glucose transporters. For example, adipose tissue and muscle, their transporter, glucose transporter GLUT4, it is regulated by insulin. Once glucose concentrations increase, insulin is secreted. It will recruit this transporter from interior to plasma, interior of the cell to plasma membrane, enhancing the uptake of glucose in adipose tissue and muscle. Thus, uptake of glucose is a rate limiting step in utilization of glucose in extrahepatic tissues. Insulin, it plays a central role in regulating glucose, blood glucose level secreted from beta cells of islets of Langerhans. Beta cells, they are freely permeable to glucose transporter 2. So once glucose enters the beta cell, it undergoes glycolysis by activity of all the enzymes and glucokinase also. So glycolysis is increased TCA, increased ATP, inhibits ATP sensitive K+ channels, depolarization of cell membrane, which results into calcium influx and exocytosis of insulin. Thus, insulin is secreted in response to high blood glucose concentration. Now, these are the pathways which are stimulated by insulin. That is, all these pathways, they utilize glucose from blood. And these pathways are inhibited by insulin, which increase glucose to the blood.